Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. On this particular video clip and episode, I'm going to go ahead and make it a continuation of what I've been speaking on, dealing with the creation of our history. And I started introducing this up under the number 11 for the purpose of teaching us that we were actually created for combat and as weapons. And I don't think that we have to stay that way. I do want to kind of throw that out there. I don't even think we were designed to stay that way. I think that the current world agenda is actually being geared towards keeping us primitive, keeping us males like dogs, keeping females in a state of feeling like they're the underdog coming up and rising, when in reality females were actually the scientists. It had a lot to do with getting us here to where we're at. See, it wasn't always a time where, you know, people laid down and had sex. Sex is actually a tool of warfare. That's what it was created for here. It was used as a tool of warfare, and the orgasmic experience is actually, to the primitive person that created sex for warfare, they didn't calculate that the orgasmic experience in sex actually ties us into our spirituality and our kundalini and things of that nature. So when we have sex now, and this is definitely important for, you know, understanding how the woman can get out of being tricked, is because when we have sex now, we're doing it, of course, to please certain pleasures. However, we think these pleasures are animalistic when they're not. These pleasures are actually coming from a lack of creativity and spiritual expression. So we tend to express this on a sexual level. However, we weren't created for this. We were created as weapons. And that's what I want to kind of get into. And when you look at the story of Enlil, Enki, and Anu, they're going to give you really a excerpt from a bigger story going into our history of how we got here, because you got to look at it like this. See, Anu was the father, and Enlil and Enki was supposed to be brothers, and they were, you know, of course, supposed to be fighting or infighting amongst one another over power. But however, what it really was that it wasn't about power. It was over a disagreement, because and the disagreement was major. The disagreement has something to do with sex, believe it or not. And that's why our whole reality right now is, our paradigm is locked into the misinterpretation of sex and the misrepresentation of sex. And that's what we're locked into now in the current world paradigm. So it wasn't always like that, but the story was locked into the story of sex, because Enki mixed in with the Anunnaki, or I'm sorry, with Homo sapiens, or the creation is what it really was, which was, of course, supposed to be us. See, Enki, he mixed in. And they say that Enlil never landed, never came down, and never had physical experience. He only viewed it, like kind of viewing it through a computer. So that was the beef that Enki had, because Enki was like, yo, though I mixed in, and Anu, of course, it was a law that you weren't supposed to mix in, of course. But he was like, though I mixed in, he mixed in and came out of it. He was considered an outlaw because he beat the law. He came out of it and beat death, because he basically uplifted the civilization he mixed in with and turned them into gods. So this is kind of where the problem comes in. This is the same problem that religion has, because as I taught in other videos, Enlil is representing the religious deity. Enki represents the pagan, so-called pagan deity, and similar to Nimrod. See, he was cursed and accused of being evil amongst his own, where he came from, because he was a full-bred Anunnaki, or god, from his home planet. And they knew that it took more than two to create. See, they came from what's called a triad. It was always three. That's why you see Enlil, Enki, and then Anu. And then it keeps going on and on. It's always three, because everything in creation actually happens in threes instead of in 1, 2, 3. It starts off as three, and then the three actually kind of finances the one, believe it or not. But it happens in a different time zone. So that's why people can't understand it. So that's why when we get caught up into so-called menage a trois and relationships like that here in this realm, it's always, you notice somebody's going to jail. Look at all these sexual scandals that are going on. I'm not going to name their names. Like, look at that politician. They talking about he did this and that. Or it's always somebody going to jail with these sexual scandals. When you get into this type of religion, I guess you can call it that, when people try to use what I'm talking about and take it into a religious level, or polygamy and polygyny and polyandry, and then it even gets into child pornography and all that type of stuff. It's a misinterpretation of these particular texts, because this stuff, you have to remember, happened in a different time zone. So when you talk about the Trinity or the Triad, this is really actually a different time zone, and they bring it and introduce it to you as, well, God is one. And they say, well, you can't put 3 into 1, of course, because it won't divide evenly. It'll just keep, it happens to be a number that's ongoing. It never, if you do it on the calculator, you'll understand what I'm talking about, but it never stops. It's a continuation. It's infinite is what it is, because it's coming from a different time zone. You can't understand it. It's a different clock and a different system of measuring. And the only way you would really understand it is to understand what it is to live in a environment that has like 3 different suns. Instead of in our environment, we have 1 sun, or actually 2, but one of them you don't know about. I'll do another video talking about that. But we have 2 suns here, or 1 that you know about. So that's a different reality, but that 1 sun came from a reality where it was 3 suns, and that sun broke off. So it's still connected. The sun itself is. You have no connection with it because it was in a different time zone, just like the sun is in a different time zone. So I know there's a lot of this is hard to understand, but it's not meant to sound like that. It's to open your mind and to let you know that you're not gonna understand it in one day. It's not a story that you read and you understand it as a continuation. It's a story where you may start at the last page one day and understand it, and then you may start at the front page the next day and understand it. But the thing is that the 3 finance the 1. So this is truly where we're going to eventually have to evolve back into if we are to survive. That's why you're seeing the virus. They got the whole world stage set for you, showing you that we're in the end times, and people can't see it. Got the woman up there with the man, female representative, the female vice president. I won't use names, but you know, they got the woman up there. Not knocking, I'm just saying the stage is set. You think that this happened by coincidence? They control everything. When I say they, these beings that are doing this from a different time zone, mind you, controlling our reality here, setting the world stage and showing you that we're on the verge of losing our whole existence and who we are as a people. Death is not going to stop. The calamities are not going to stop. The virus, they may find a cure for this one. It's going to be another virus if they do. But actually, all of these deaths, even when they're saying that they're not, they're all related to the virus. Just a lot I have to talk about. It's a lot I have to talk about. However, you're never going to get into understanding any of this unless you first understand your body as a weapon and understand these stories and why you were created, why they did what they did, and what you need to do to get yourself out of what they did, which is, of course, you have to first understand what you are as a weapon. You can't talk about getting out of anything until you understand what you are. We don't know what we are as humans yet. We're learning. And as we learn, we're going to have to move out of being weapons and become genius again and break the code. And not only that, not geniuses in the sense of being wimps and weak, but being strong geniuses. Geniuses that can go up against nature, because they're going to use nature against you. Remember, they control the weather. These beings that call themselves the Illuminati, they control all of this from a different time zone. The only way to get out of it is the first, and they use what's called units. See, and new rules with numbers and units. That's why when Neo always went to the Matrix, he always would see numbers. I always say this. So they use, that's the way to get out of this, is symbols and numbers. Then eventually they move into what's called, what Enlil represented was the rulership of, or the distribution of units. Who gets what? See, this is how they control you. And then Enlil is the key. He was the keys. See, he controlled through teaching you how to get out of the spell or the game. So he was considered the bad guy to his people, or to where he came from, but the good guy to these so-called aliens or humans that they created and fucked up on, really, because when they created us, they fucked up because they used different beings from different star constellations that they didn't even understand. It was kind of like a trade deal, like if saying, I want to manufacture this gun, right? So I'm going to get some parts from Germany. I'm going to get some parts from Senegal. I'm going to get some parts from Pakistan. I'm gonna get some parts from India somewhere, right? Or Hong Kong even, and I'm gonna make this gun from all these different parts. But I don't really understand how they came up with these parts in India, Senegal, Sudan. I don't understand. I'm just gonna buy them, and put them together, and they're gonna, give you an instruction, and you're gonna assemble them. That's how they did it when they created us, not understanding these certain DNA codes that could set off, and we can shift and get out of this reality and ascend to a high level past our rulers. And that's what they want to block you from. And they're gonna do it through you. So the key and the goal is, of course, is the mastery of the level of self and having self-control on a sexual level, on a financial level, on a food level, even on a religious level, on what you partake and what you consume on a religious level, having control and understanding. And when you don't understand, having patience and waiting for the next key to come to you. And once you finally do all of that, this is how you get out of the prison that we're into. That's what I'm going to get into when I get into the number 12. I'm going to talk about the prison that we're actually in this human body, this interfacing actually with the higher computer system and intelligence that they're controlling you through. So I'm going to get ready for this NBA thing tonight. I always want to put that out there. I'm still in the real world, and I have to make this a real experience. So I have to try to make some money today. I have already, profits kind of doing pretty good today. I'm gonna see how we do tonight, though. I'm getting ready for this NBA game. I'm gonna let you guys know how it went. So I'll get back up with you. Have a good evening. Don't party too hard. As always, wadu, namaste. Good vibes.